we're not a 5 days a week in the office shop. Never have been, never will be. So people come into the office when they want to, and it seems to work. So that when they come in we don't have assigned seats, so you can sit next to anybody you want to. So our product people sit next to marketing people, sit next to commercial people, and that it's those little interactions that are unscripted that tend to yield like creativity and cool thoughts.
Yes, that goes for traveling too.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Right? I think everyone wants to be more curious, and a lot of people just put these constraints on themselves, you know?
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's being curious takes a little bit of effort, and a lot of people don't want to put the effort. It's so much easier to come home from work or whatever you're doing, plop down on the couch, and then be a passive consumer of what someone else's content, right? Whether that's on a laptop, on TikTok, or on a TV screen, just to be passive consumers, versus seeking it out actively, what you want to go do. My advice for just about everybody is put the devices down.
Yeah.
You're missing so much by looking down at a device.
There's a lot of research being done around the correlation between not only devices, so the transition from the flip phone to the smartphone this year, 2012, which signifies a precipitous decline across the board, especially with children.
Yep.
And then there's another line with when broadband was introduced, and I noticed that too. Putting down a device is really great advice. But a lot of people then, I think, want to step out. They want to explore. They want to come up with an idea. They want to go and tell someone about it. But they do need some courage to do that because it's scary.
Yeah.
It is.
It doesn't come naturally for most people.
So what are some ways to become more familiar with that space, that uncomfortable stepping out and going and doing the thing space?
Well, there's lots of forums now where you can actually interact with similarly positioned people who also have new ideas that they want to socialize, and you just get together with those folks. It's easy to find. Thank goodness for the internet. You can actually find this stuff,
Right?
And you can go meet like-minded people who are at a similar stage of development, and it's a friendly audience. I don't know if you've ever tried these stand-up comedy programs.
Have you?
But yeah.
Were you funny?
No, I was not funny. But there's no better way of validating.
That was funny.
Yeah, no, there was no better way of validating that I wasn't than getting up on stage and trying to do stand-up.
Right.
And
Uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. Everything else pales in comparison. After you go through that, it's like, taking a bungee cord off a high bridge. Once you've done that, other stuff doesn't look so hard.
I think for me that would be dancing.
Dancing, exactly. Well, yeah, dancing. It's funny. I used to do the club scene and all that stuff. You couldn't get me to do that now.
Yeah. For this reason, because it's scary and you should probably step into it to grow to self-development.
Yeah, I just think a 55-year-old guy at a club is, not the best look for you or for the rest of the crowd.
That's funny.
It's true. It's true.
I want to talk a little bit about Miami.
Sure. Great town.
Where are we in the story of Miami?
Still early days. I mean, if you looked, I've only been here for 9 years, but I remember when there were no buildings in Edgewater. I mean, Miami has a skyline now. It's crazy, and it has traffic. And look, I think the city as it grows is, it's just early innings, because there's so much beauty in Miami, and then you have a favorable government and tax scheme, and then you have this amazing vitality. It's very different from Boston and from New York and Chicago and LA, which is, those are all great cities, and they've lost their mojo, and Miami still has it. I mean, the optimism in this town, it's amazing.
You get that palpable
for sure.
sense.
Oh, look, we're in Miami Beach, right, which is totally different from Miami, because here we have a lot of tourists. But everyone's happy. You're happy to be here.
Yeah.
And the locals are the happiest of all of them.
Yeah.
And Miami proper on the mainland, where you have the skyscrapers, it's like a clean Manhattan now.
Yeah.
Brickell's like a clean Manhattan. It's crazy. Great restaurants, clean streets, hustle and bustle. People don't leave that neighborhood. That's how attractive it is. I personally never go to Brickell.
Right.
I love Miami Beach.
Yeah.
That's because I love to surf and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But there are distinct neighborhoods in Miami, and that's really the sign of a city that's coming into its own.
Isn't it interesting when you go to a place that makes you feel really good, how many other great things happen,
For sure.
and vice versa?
Yeah. Positive energy. There's no replicating it, and the same is true of negative energy. When you go to New York now, and I'm there every 2 weeks. What a great city that's lost its way. It's terrible.
Back in the 80s, from the Cornell School of Hotel Management, a study was published called How Destinations Rise and Fall in Popularity. And it was effectively a bell curve and showed how any given destination falls somewhere on this curve. And at the very left-hand side of the curve are these most adventuresome places, the off-the-beaten-path places with no English and no tours.
Right.
When people, the adventurers, visit those locations, they eventually come back and tell their slightly less adventuresome friends, you would really like this place. And they work their way all the way up to the top. And back in the 80s, this researcher, Stanley Plug, predicted that Costa Rica would find a sweet spot because of its identity and its positioning, and cautioned that any destination that's not aware of where they fall on the curve will very quickly flow off into what he predicted way ahead before its time, a Cancun.
Or Acapulco, right?
An Acapulco. Where do you think Miami is in that bell curve?
Whew, that's a good one. Certainly it's still in the ascendancy, but the tricky part is how do you manage the traffic? How do you manage keeping the bay clean? Because the population growth has been so big. It's not a tourism thing anymore. Tourism is still the biggest industry here, but it's fallen by a lot. I think financial services may soon eclipse it. So I think if the government does a really good job with law and order, with infrastructure, with keeping the bay clean, because one of the best things about Miami is swimming.
Yeah.
Right off the shore.
I do it every morning.
That's awesome. It's awesome.
I don't think I could ever move anywhere where I can't do that.
Yeah. And I think this year, for the first time, we're doing a good job managing spring break crowds, too.
Mm-hmm.
So law and order, it's a simple prescription. You just, like anything else, you need to execute against it.
Right.
And so far, knock on wood or leather chair, it seems to be working.
Speaking of storytelling, have you seen the commercial that they put out?
Yeah. It's not us, it's you.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's a story that they're telling people that maybe this isn't the right fit for you this year.
Yep.
It's a wonderful branding campaign.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a need for more, better storytelling in destination management organizations and just general travel businesses?
For sure. Look, I think a lot of destinations see ads that work. Attractive people, great restaurants, bumping music, hopefully a beach if you've got one. If not, beautiful architecture and beautiful landscaping. But then that's a total mismatch with what actually happens when you visit.
Right.
New Orleans, all right? New Orleans, fabulous city historically. You watch their marketing for the destination. You see happy people, you see the French Quarter, jazz music, lots of smiles. You go there. It's a total mismatch.
Right.
It's like Apple advertising, Walmart shopping experience. Total mismatch. Because that's not what the French Quarter is like anymore.
Right.
In New Orleans like. So I think that's the biggest wrinkle in destination marketing is promising something other than the experience that you're actually going to have.
How much about the bureaucracy of how long it takes to do something on a government level and how fast things are changing now?
Yeah. Look,
that was accurate at one point, maybe.
Yeah. Look, I grew up in Texas. We used to go to New Orleans to party, and it was a fun time.
Right.
Now that's a good place to get robbed, unfortunately. So maybe the government can fix that. But I think government's ability to get stuff done is inversely correlated with the size of the government, how many people you put on it, and how complex it is with all the different departments.
Yeah. One of the interesting things I thought about the Miami Beach campaign is a very clear understanding of self.
Yeah.
This is who we are. This is who we are not.
That's right.
And like you said, maybe we're not for you. And I think that really applies to entrepreneurs and visionaries. It does take a kind of refinement and practice in developing your tastes and your preferences and what you like and what you don't like and what you think is cool and what you think sucks, which is unique to you. It's limited edition.
Right.
The theme of this series of interviews is unlimited, because if you really do follow that, the opportunities almost seem endless.
That's right.
Yeah?
That's right.
You can validate?
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, again, going back to the theme of self and situational awareness, ultimately authenticity is what you care about. And once you have that clarity of what you like, it focuses everything you do.
But how do you become more authentic?
You actually stop lying to yourself. There's a lot of people who deceive themselves into thinking that something makes them happy or fulfilled, and actually it doesn't. It makes them unhappy. So, I think you need that, back to your intuition. You need the intuition of knowing what actually fulfills you, and then have the clarity to go chase that, and the sense of purpose to go chase that. I know a lot of friends who are commuting from Connecticut down to the financial services district in New York every day, riding the train for an hour 10 each way. Hate it, and they know they're gonna do it for 20 years. Like I couldn't do that, and I don't think they're being authentic.
So they're not being honest with themselves.
Yeah, that doesn't make them happy, but they do it nonetheless. And you do what makes you happy. You live 3 blocks in this great studio.
Yeah. But this has been a real process for me of figuring out what makes me happy. And that was not an easy thing. That required work, like you said.
Yeah.
And being honest with myself, ultimately, that took practice and intellectual challenging from people. Because otherwise, you just float on by, and it's like, okay, things are okay, things are not great, maybe things are a little bit better, but it's not like I am thrilled to walk from my apartment after swimming in the ocean and interview Steve. That makes me so excited.
Yeah.
In a way that I think business deserves.
Join our creative business community at HereGoesNothin.com.